Okay.
Erin Dullaghan Jones, author of The Divorcee Dish, and I think it's even a larger community. I don't want to limit you, but we'll get into that. Welcome to Lunch and a Divorce Lawyer, Erin.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat with you.
Oh, grateful to have you. And yeah, I love talking to people who really share what I think is a very personal experience that you've maybe motivated you slash inspired you to write your book. So why don't we start here? So um well, a lot of times I like to ask kind of like what do you do and how did you get here? I think your book, Divorcee Dish, is a bit of a side hustle and not your day job. So why don't we start just by kind of saying, so you have this book called Divorcee Dish. What's it about and what's the origin story of your book, Divorcee Dish?
Well, it started off as a blog.
Okay.
Woke up one weekend in May 2022, said, I feel like writing a divorce blog. So I did. I thought of
Sure.
a name, got the domain and started writing. And I did it because there were so many sites out there that weren't necessarily comprehensive. There are a lot of sites that are more comprehensive now, but at the time it was either focused on, okay, let's talk about divorce law, let's talk
Mm-hmm.
about kids' effects and divorce, let's talk, just kind of segment it out, but not a lot of people talked about what happens after divorce
Mm-hmm.
either. So we take you through that journey of, if you're thinking about it, here's what you need to know. If you're starting the proceedings, uh, during the proceedings, after the proceedings, because people that think it's a relief per se, I see a lot of posts like, yay, I signed my divorce papers today. And then there's other people like, I signed my divorce papers today. So I think there needs to be there. I created this as a community, really, and a resource. And I ask for other people's stories and say, or topics that they want to hear about. And then I do my research and write the blog. And I do like I said, everything from the beginning to the afterlife. I've been divorced 4 years. It's so
Mm-hmm.
different than, right after that initial shock, whether it was ours was mutual. So it was we have a great working relationship. So I'm one of the lucky ones.
Mm-hmm.
And we're still friends. We talk all the time. However, not everybody has that experience. And it's not that it wasn't hurtful either. I think I cried and cried and cried for 6 months. I remember running around the park crying and just
Right.
having a playlist of songs that I would listen to get me through. And then I had a couple other friends going through a divorce. So they divorced after me. And, so we kind of collaborated on our woes. And I think people need to find that sense of community because they feel lost sometimes after a divorce. And I was at somebody's house years before I even thought about divorce. And I remember someone saying, like, you never get invited to parties again. And I said, really? Yeah, people kind of forget about you. So I have realized that they just, I don't know if it's that they feel uncomfortable, and
Mm-hmm.
I remember uh or parties of one, coming, or afraid that all you're going to talk about is your divorce, which is the last thing you want to talk about.
Right.
Um, so I think it's really interesting to see all of those aspects and things people don't tell you before divorce or do tell you before divorce. And you don't think that's going to happen to you, and it does. And then it can be a lonely feeling. And I think people need to lean on each other. And a lot of times, I see these people in crisis online because there's several different groups on Facebook or various sites that talk about divorce. And people, I'm miserable. I don't know what to do. It's a, you feel for them, and the pain of it. And again, whether it was mutual or it was a toxic divorce, you just feel compelled to just want to reach out and hug every single person that's going through it. And it's so common. And I come from a divorced family. I
Hmm.
never thought I'd get divorced, but I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
And here I am writing about it, and sharing just thoughts and stories from other folks.
So, so when I hang out at divorceedish.com, that's the website, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I would think the community aspect would be a great resource because I've been through a divorce as a attorney, not
Uh-huh.
as a participant personally. Um, but isn't there almost some analogies to? I do feel like when you're in kind of dark places, like just
Mhm.
general struggles,
Yeah.
I think is particularly well, giving you. I think men are actually particularly susceptible to kind of going inside or you know what I mean, and
Yeah.
getting super lonely. I was just reading an article actually about recent research out about actually the suicide rate for like older men.
Yes. I was watching
And
on a show this weekend, that covered that, and it was men, single men in their 50s, 60s.
yeah, yeah, and just like I feel like I didn't do a deep dive on like the abstract of the academic research, but
Right.
I'm sure a big part of it is like you get isolated. You let yourself like I know, I could check off a few areas of my life that are like, oh, I'm a little depressed about this or this or this and
Yeah.
right, really kind of screaming to myself a lot. Look, I need to stay connected with some close people around me or I don't want to be part of that statistic and I'm not, but I mean, and
Yeah.
so I,
No,
I think the
I mean,
community aspect, I think is something, that's great,
yeah.
divorce or
Yeah, and just having that, I mean,
support
I've written a
system.
lot about loneliness. I mean, no matter who you are, there are gonna be times, like you said, you're in a dark place and you do
Hmm.
not feel like reaching out to anybody, even though you know you want to. Um, you're like, do they want to hear it from me again? That I'm having a hard time. But I think that's the first step is reaching out to someone. And some people are adverse to therapy. And I think that the whole mental health matters movement is so important because of the amount of people. I think the statistic was super high for the amount of people that have committed suicide over the past year. I don't remember what it was. And I'm curious to see like where they were in their lives, is it divorce, like, because you suffer in so many areas
Hmm.
emotionally, physically, your body takes a toll, financially, your kids, you're trying to take care of your kids if you have kids and get their thoughts. And I think I mentioned prior to our conversation, like you really don't know the impact. And my kids were 13 and 8 um,
Hmm.
when we divorced, and my son is now, asking those questions of, well, why did you get divorced? And,
Mm.
the effects are taking to him later. And would you be happier if you were still married to daddy? And those type of like, I've been thinking about this for 4 years and now can communicate what I'm curious about. And because that's what I tell people, when they're going through it, may be surprised what your children say later on. And again, another child of mine, they write for their school magazine, and she wrote a whole article with someone else on having to do that, families in transition, um,
Of course.
class, and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
how miserable they were and confused, and it's just a mandate for several hours. And I think that, when she wrote that, she also wrote about the first night that I wasn't at the house because I
Mm.
was the one that moved. Um and that was, hard in more ways than anybody, I mean, everybody that's been through it can imagine what that
Yeah.
felt like. But you really have to get in a groove, and there is life after a divorce. And I think people need to realize that even though you could be divorced 10 years and just have those dark times, but reaching out to people and going to a community or just asking questions like, what do you feel about this? And, navigating, if you want to connect with someone, the new dating norm, which is online and mobile apps.
Right.
And that's a hot mess. I mean, I I don't even know what to say about it anymore, really. I mean, I do write about it, but it's more experimental, and the fact of just educating people on what to expect. But I know people that have met after their divorce on these sites and gotten married. So, you never know. And I think everybody craves that love and support that at one point you had in your marriage, and they're always seeking that again. And you can find it in other ways besides a partner. You can find it within a friend group, but you have to reach out and make sure that you stay social. And I'm guilty of saying, staying in for a couple weeks when I don't have my kids. I, have them 3 or 4 days a week, but and just watching a movie and just getting in my cooking for myself and having a glass of wine. It just like you get in your routines as a single
I would
person.
think you would really need to work hard to create, this might be overly simplistic, but almost like create a whole new social like world.
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
do. And
I
you
have my own friends, but so many, I mean, are definitely kind of like they things my wife, whose name is Regan, and I kind of do together. Not that we're always doing stuff with couples, but I think
right.
you said you would stop getting invited to things, or
Yeah.
this is an imperfect analogy, but moving to another state when you're in your 40s, like my wife and I did recently,
Yeah.
it's hard work to create a new like social world, right? You're not
Right.
20 in college or high school, and it's a lot of work.
It
That's
is.
not apples to apples, but I would think
No,
there's some analogy there to like you really probably have to work to kind of
you do.
create that community and just friendships and all of that. Maybe not
It
from scratch, but I would guess there's a lot of like fallout in like your
well, and
social circles.
yeah, for me, we had some couple friends, and it's not that they took sides. They
Yeah,
just stopped communicating.
right,
And with both of us, and we don't get invited to those Sunday dinners anymore. And
yeah,
or I don't, or he doesn't. Um and then my neighborhood, my girls from my old street, are like, move back, and that makes you feel good. Yet they still have their families, and they've got children or not, and they're busy in their day to day. And I think everybody gets caught up in their day to day, and you have to make that effort to find a new group. But where? I can't tell you where. I mean, sure, go to a coffee shop and people, but everybody's working, and then you're like, should I interrupt this person? Just say hello.
right,
Uh, but and then just there's a site called Meetup, and where you can find similar
right,
likes.
right.
And I thought about doing that. And my mom, when was she's still divorced, but she always said, oh, she joined a ski club here in Louisville, and that was her
Hmm.
basis, that was her social, that was her, she went to divorce groups. Well, now they're all online, so people are chatting, but
Right,
they're not really humanizing the conversation as it used to be. And technology has been a gift, and it's been a curse, I think, for
right,
people,
right,
because you can think you're social on your phone texting, but you're not talking to anyone, and you don't embrace, like, I'm a hugger. So I'm like, I need that, physical. So when my kids are here, I'm hugging all over them, and The girls are 18 now. They're like, mom, mom, mom. But you want that physical interaction of just embracing just your friends and the new friends that you do make. And I have made really good friends, but a lot of them have gone on to find new partners. And once that happens, it's like they don't have much time anymore. Um, so yeah, I think in any situation, I mean, moving to a new state, city, whatever, that is hard because people have been established in
Hmm.
their social circles for so long. But yeah, I remember this woman saying they forget about you. And it's so true. I just got invited to this annual cookie party that my friend has, and she's going through a divorce though now. And so like they've always invited me, but it's like, oh, I feel for her. But she's trying to keep those connections, but once their divorce is final, it could change.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some weird thing, and we're probably not here to solve all the world's problems, but like,
But we are. No, I'm just kidding.
they're like different. Like, yeah, it's like, I feel like, what somebody gets divorced, and now, like, yeah, social world changes, or this group is out. You have children or don't have children, and that impacts, like, okay. Or, okay, I got this single guy friend, like, and is he excluded when there are these like couple events? There's weird, like, I think I generally do really try to like kind of just be present for a person wherever they are, but I definitely don't think that's how the world is. I feel like the world is, okay, you're not this anymore, then you're out, or
Yeah.
it's a strange thing. I know my wife really, really talks about it, even more than, I don't know. I mean, there are male and female differences, obviously, and she's just one person. But feel like sometimes, she, we don't have children, so sometimes I feel like she's excluded from some of her young mother events, or
Yeah.
it can be harder for her to make friends with other women, because sometimes I feel like they're really into their kids or something, and it's like, oh, so then you're out, honey,
Yeah.
sorry.
And that's not, and it's not fair. It's like I'm still human. I'm here, as
Yeah, there's still probably a lot more commonality than not, just because, okay, now you're not married, we don't have children,
yeah.
somebody's whatever, but
Well, and that's, and that's interesting you say that too, because I think there is some stigma sometimes even in when post divorce in the dating world where people don't have kids and it's like, oh, why didn't they have kids, like it
yeah,
what and I don't think, and for me, I mean, I was very fortunate to have kids. I went through fertility issues. I've
yeah,
experienced that. I
hmm,
was very lucky to have 3 children. And some people did try that, and that's a personal journey and story for them. And nobody needs to know why or you do or don't have children. Just accept them for who they are. My
right,
goodness. Yeah.
right. Hey,
Um,
so I had another person on the podcast, and his tip, he was in a similar box as you, meaning he'd written a book about his divorce experience. I think he'd also then gone out and interviewed some people, like side experts around the
yeah.
divorce topic.
Yeah.
He said the best move, or, well, this is kind of the best move slash, he thought the person most negatively impacted by the divorce was the child or the children, and to really have a child's therapist involved. Is that a similar experience to you? Is that a really super high critical point to you? Or what were a couple of, like, boy, looking back, this was really tough or really challenging piece of a divorce process?
I think that with or without children,
Hmm.
therapy needs to be involved. I'm a very much an advocate for that. I think because when your friends don't know what to say, a therapist can step in and say, okay, this is what you're dealing with, and it's okay. You're gonna be okay,
Hmm.
and as for whether children should go or the family should go, I know families that have gone. Um, my daughters had gone. My son has not, but one of my daughters also developed an eating disorder over this time period
Hmm.
since the divorce. And so that's she's been in therapy, and I think part of the control aspect of an eating disorder, not I don't know if it was triggered by the divorce, really can't pinpoint, but I think that people process in different ways, and it's so helpful to vent to somebody that's in a neutral position. And I think that that's important for people to know, like, if you really are getting lost in a dark place, please reach out. I mean, there are hotlines now. You talk about
Mm-hmm.
the suicide rate, you
Right.
know, reach out to someone, because really, people think they're social when they go on Facebook. Well, Facebook's, let
Yeah,
me,
I think that's it's. I think that's. I mean, isn't social media more like part of the problem? I mean,
I,
in
I think
terms of kind of the
that it,
loneliness isolation problem, because it almost right. You're kind of like envious of somebody's car or something that in their
well,
fake life or something, and yeah, you're not really connected.
you're not, and then people are not living the lives that they are showing. I
Right.
mean,
Right.
let's be
Yes.
honest.
Right. Absolutely.
I mean, not every marriage. Oh my God, I've been married to my love of my life for 20 years and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, really? I know you've
Right.
had your challenges. Like, there is nobody that is that perfect. And I think people get envious of that. They see that and they don't really realize that this is just a anniversary. This is not everyday life. And people don't share. I mean, they're starting to the bad times as much as the good times.
Right.
And and that's by choice, I think. And I am happen to be in the social media industry due to my other business.
Right.
So I'm active in social media, but if I didn't have to be, I probably wouldn't.
Mm.
It's just because it can be toxic at times. And I think it feeds those depressive, if you're seeing, oh, well, look at what happened to my college roommate. She's blooming and she's successful and all these things, but you don't see her day to day, what's happening in her world. And everyone has their own struggles.
So, Aaron, a couple bullets maybe you sent me in advance, or how about just one? Some divorce topics you think should be talked about, or what considered a little bit more than they are. What would be a topic or two that's ignored or something?
I think the processing of it all and how long it takes after
Mm.
a divorce, people don't really talk about that. They're like, I'm divorced.
Right.
I should be
Right.
okay, or
No. No.
I
No.
shouldn't be okay.
Right.
Um, how long will I feel this? I think the emotional aspects, how quickly should I get back in the field? People don't talk about that. They don't talk about, let's say you've been with your partner and only been with one partner for several years, getting back out there in an intimate
Yeah.
way is
Yeah.
something people don't talk about. So I've definitely
Yeah.
talked about just because it's a topic that I feel, some are very open with and some are like, oh my gosh, we never talked about that growing up. And I'm like, it's life. It's part of who
Right.
humans
Right.
are. It's human nature. And I think there's a lot of guilt that people don't talk about. Like,
Mm.
and they think coulda, shoulda, woulda. And
Right.
I remember saying, a therapist of mine saying, never get caught up in the coulda, shoulda, woulda,
Mm.
because that is not going to get you anywhere. And you got to be okay with a gray area because nothing's black and white.
Right.
And I think those are topics. And then I think that, you know, let's say you were in a cheating scenario
Yeah.
and that has had a negative connotation for so long. And I had written a blog about cheating. And then I met with someone who had cheated, had been the cheater, like
Yeah.
just asked for coffee and just a new person I was meeting. And she was offended by the blog. And
Mm.
it made me take a step back and go, okay, wait a minute. because she ended up marrying the man she cheated on her ex-husband with. So
Yeah.
I think that people need to know that it happens, and there's good and bad sides to it, and something was broken in the marriage prior to for this to have happened.
Mm,
Um, but
right.
anyway, I mean, I think that, that made me realize, oh, well, that's a topic that needs to be looked at both sides. Um, whether you're like cheating and I'm done with you,
Right.
or, you know, cheating and let's work it out. But trust, is key to every relationship, and honesty. And I I don't know that people express as one more thing that they needs to be talked about more is like really every single feeling that you're feeling, whether it's good, bad, ugly, whatever it is, writing it down. So one of the things in the book is you read the blog, and then I say it's time to dish. So I ask you questions about the blog, like, have you experienced this? Write it
Mm-hmm.
in your journal, answer these questions so you can start to process what you are going through at that time. So there's different topics and chapters that cover so much, like what do you wish you would have known prior to divorce? And I think that the journaling opportunity is something that is really needed. And no matter what, I mean, some people do not like to write in a journal.
Right.
Um, but just even taking a second to think about it, like, oh yeah, I could have handled that in a different way, and I learned from that experience, and this is what I learned, and now I'm going to do it this way. I mean, I think that there's opportunities, particularly in my book and blog. However, there are a lot of great resources out there, including people like you, that people can ask questions about the law of it all.
Right.
And because there's so many different laws by state, and I've talked about
Right.
that.
Right. What
Uh,
is there another just maybe chapter or two from the book you might want to highlight? Maybe just, hey, this was my favorite chapter, or
I
this is a
think
great one. If I don't,
uh, I, I first, I
when I
personally,
have a few minutes,
yeah,
what's a cha
I think that some of the post-divorce stories are fun.
mm,
I think that it's just like, okay, yeah, I experienced that too. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. I just didn't know. Um, and I think one of my favorites is just how you feel, what you didn't
mm-hmm,
know before. There is life after. That is
mm-hmm,
very much one of my favorites, because people think, okay, I'm divorced, and no matter what age, you think, okay, that's it, unless you are willing to make those efforts to find someone. And as we all know, that's hard. These people go on reality shows to do it now. um,
yeah, the post divorce, yeah, if I oversimplify, but like pre-divorce, during divorce, post divorce, somebody who's at least been in the family law legal world for a long time, I deal with two out of those a lot.
yeah,
Kind of things you need to be thinking about pre-divorce, during divorce. I mean, the legal side, but even maybe a little bit other. Not that I should be wearing too many hats, but yeah. How often am I really hearing or really doing anything post-divorce?
yeah.
Yeah, it does seem like that might be a little bit ignored.
I think it is. I mean,
Of the three.
yeah, I agreed, because people can look at the processes, and they can look at the laws in their state. They can look at, the laws of um, the LGBTQ plus community, and say, okay,
Right.
how are those divorces? And I think that's another subject that is not talked about enough either,
Hmm.
because it happens in every community. This world continues to develop, and I think that the post divorce world is like where people need the most support, because along the way there's all these things moving, and the financials and getting it all together, and then signing those papers, and then it's like, now what do I do? I gotta keep working. I've got to keep taking care of my children, or I just taking care of myself and make time for myself, and reconnect with old connections, maybe,
Mm,
to make sure that I, know that life is short and you don't want to take days for granted, and you just got to get that into your mind too. This is your life now,
right.
and it can be happy. You can make it happy. But you've got to work at it. It's not going to happen overnight.
So, Erin, trying to wrap this, land the plane relatively smoothly. What's a bullet on each one of these? Best and worst pieces of advice, person going through completing a divorce. Best idea, worst idea.
Worst idea is to shame your ex on social media.
Oh, good one.
Um, a lot of people have done that and talk
Mm,
bad about their exes.
yeah,
Um, I would keep that to a small group. That's not a good idea. And everybody re deserves redemption. That is a very bad thing to do. I think best practices is, yes, talk about it, journal about it, learn new routines, and know while you're going through it, your emotions are going to be everywhere.
hmm,
You could wake up and feel like 100%, and one day you have no energy and you want to cry and sit in bed all day, and that's okay. And that's best practices. Take care of yourself throughout.
yeah.
Um, Take a step back, look at what's happening, and take a minute for yourself, whether that's working out, whether that's just talking to someone. I think best practices overall, I would tell someone, it's a whirlwind. Some of them drag out, some of them are fast
Right,
divorces, but whatever
right.
you are going through, just let your body do what it needs to do to deal.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, self-care, I would think would be
Yeah, a lot
uh
of people don't, just are like, I want to get this over
critical.
with. Let's do this thing. And I mean, depending on how long you were married, that
Hmm.
makes an impact on your life and why you're getting divorced and processing that. So I think people need to value self care more. I had to slow my body down or else I was going to crash. I mean,
Yeah,
I had to, because
yeah.
I just kept going. And then I did crash at one point, and I had to pick myself back up and say, you know, this is what I've learned from that experience. I don't want to feel that again. Now I'm going to practice more self care. So I meditate, and that has been helpful. Like 10
That's
minutes a
great.
day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's not easy to practice to get into, but I encourage it.
Oh, thanks for those tips, Aaron. And okay, so the really fluffy, fun question. Now you're in Louisville, so you can answer this in Louisville, or you said you had a Chicagoland tie.
Hmm.
So our audience is looking for fun things to do in the Midwest. I don't know if Louisville's really in the Midwest or in greater Chicagoland.
Yeah.
What's a fun activity around Chicagoland or Louisville that you would recommend, or both?
We'll see. Let's talk about Louisville and Kentucky in general. The bourbon tours are amazing. Going on a bourbon barrel pick should be on everybody's bucket list. I mean, you don't even have to be somebody that drinks to enjoy those experiences and learning.
Bourbon bucket. What did you say?
I said on your bucket list.
No, I
Pick,
got bucket list. What
okay,
was it called though? There was a tour, but then there was something weird.
put it on your
Bourbon.
bucket list, and
Okay, maybe I.
bourbon barrel pick. So
Yeah, that was the one. Bourbon barrel pick. What
you
is
can
that
pick
like?
your own, you can create your own bourbon
Okay,
on at many of the distilleries.
okay,
So
it sounds
that's
pretty good.
awesome. Chicago has so much to offer. But the Arboretum, I love the Arboretum, Morton Arboretum
Okay.
there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I
You said your tie was western suburb. I'm more of a
Yeah,
Chicago Botanic Gardens guy, which is north, but I got
run
you.
the Chicago Marathon. I love that. I ran it once.
Oh, Oh,
Yeah.
awesome.
And then, but your food, I mean, I'm a foodie, and the restaurants in your city, and it's not the chains, it's the
Oh,
secret
right. Yeah.
places
Yeah.
that are hidden and the best places to go. And but there's been so many secret areas that my sister has shown me, and I'm like, go off the beaten path. Somebody just posted, actually, a friend of mine that's going to Chicago, and she said, "What do we do?" And I got to my sister and I said, I would love to give them the inside scoop. And so she gave me a list of things. So I think that in Chicagoland, whether you're there for a conference or just for fun, or a concert, which seems to be happening a lot,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
there's just so much to explore, but do it in mini trips so you don't exhaust yourself. You can do that in Louisville too. Louisville is like per capita has the most restaurants. So you
Oh,
can
really?
eat your way through
It's
Louisville.
been a minute since I've been to Louisville. I got one of my degrees down at Southern Illinois University, and I remember going over to Louisville a few times. But
Yeah, the city's really developed. And I didn't think I'd actually stay here, but job opportunities led me to stay put. And now all my family has moved away, but that's okay. um,
I like Kentucky in general. I feel like it gets a little bit of a bad rap at a national level. I think it's a nice climate. There's some nice mid-sized cities like Louisville, Lexington.
oh yeah.
Um,
You can
yeah,
walk the coffee shops. Their park system is amazing here.
Paducah's a kind of a cool city if you ever get over there. Paducah's kind of cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I went to WKU, Bowling Green. So great city too. People are just, yeah, they think of Kentucky and like, oh, and I remember growing up and people asking me, do you wear shoes? I'm like, yes, we wear shoes.
I know, no, yeah, it's funny, but no, yeah, I'm a
Yeah.
fan. I'm
Yeah.
totally a fan.
Mhm.
So Erin, thanks again for joining us. Who should be jumping over to Divorcee Dish? Like, who's your customer ideal person, and where can people find more about the book, the community, etc.? Just yeah,
They
steer
can
us
go
in the
to,
right direction, and who
yeah,
should be going there?
divorceedish.com. It can be for anybody going through relationship struggles or in a new relationship, um, pre-divorce, but like you said, pre-post. I call out the divorcees, but it relates to any long-term relationship or a relationship too. I talk about just general breakups. I mean, it's
Mhm.
like a divorce.
Right.
So I think there's a community out there that needs that support, and I provide resources on my site as along with the blogs, and then my book is in paperback. It's an ebook, and it's also an audiobook.
Oh,
So you
awesome.
can find those on my site too.
Awesome. So yeah, divorceedish.com. Erin Dullaghan Jones, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
All right, be
Thanks for
well.
having
Take care.
me. All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, that was a really interesting conversation for me. Couple of my highlights just in speaking with Erin really were some of her points about the post-divorce process because yeah, very genuinely, I do feel like people think a lot about kind of handling the case going into it and sort of how to go through a divorce. I know that's something I'm dealing with as an attorney. But then, yeah, post divorce, and I'm even looking in the mirror, maybe we can do a better job of really putting some resources in the hands of our clients because kind of seems like, the case is over and then it's just like goodbye. And Erin made some good points just about how important it is to really go through that grieving process, issues of dating and intimacy with if you're kind of out there post divorce and you had been married to the same person for a long time, how to avoid guilt and things like that, even in a relationship where maybe there was infidelity, right? These things have happened, but kind of that guilt and that ugly baggage, you don't want to carry that around for the rest of your life. And her best piece of advice, I think, for somebody in the midst of a divorce really was to have that community, make sure you're in a community, not isolating yourself, and really making a point to provide for your personal self-care during a very, very challenging time. So subscribe to Lunch and a Divorce Lawyer. Our downloads really have been rocketing the second half of this year as we've really tried to make some upgrades in the production and the podcast. You know, you're subscribed, that thing just downloads, poof, it's there. So check us out. You know, we're on all the big players: Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google, and YouTube. So you want to learn more about me personally and my legal services business, check me out, Peter Olson. I'm at thepro.lawyer. Thanks for listening. See you next month.